think it's looking like a Zwift kind of day today. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so full disclosure time. The snow outside is just part of the reason why I decided to hop onto Zwift. The other part is I've been pretty disappointed with my level of fitness recently, and there's a cardiac patient and someone who survived a cardiac arrest. Fitness and health really should be paramount for me. I did a session outside recently, an interval session, and was really disappointed that I didn't push I wasn't able to push my heart rate. I think the maximum I got to then was 134 beats a minute, which is pretty pathetic considering I should have a top heart rate based on my age of around 165 beats a minute. So I came back indoors, went on Zwift, did some interval training, did some sustained efforts, managed to get up to about 140, 141 beats a minute, so still pretty low. So today I'm forcing myself into a race. I've got a bit of a competitive edge to me, hopefully, so it might just give me that extra kick to maybe start pushing towards 155 beats, get closer to that target, 165 beats a minute. I also have a second goal, and that is to increase my power. Now Zwift, based on my previous efforts, has given me an FTP, or a functional threshold power, of 186. That's fairly modest, and really I'd like to get it up over 195, possibly even 200, which means that for the entirety of the race I need to be well over 200 watts, which is pushing it a bit for me based on my recent workouts, but we'll see how it goes. You know, you can always be ambitious. Anyway, I'm actually warming up, and I'm over 120 beats per minute already, so maybe goal one will be achieved fairly easily, fingers crossed. Okay, it's going to start in a couple of minutes. I'm just going to focus on my warm-up for the last minute or two. So that's me there with the blue and white arrow over my head. Fortunately, my kit is pretty distinctive. There's no one around me in the race who's wearing the same kit, so I should be fairly easy to keep an eye on. Now, I did mention that one of my main goals is to increase my power, so that blue box on the left hand side is one to keep an eye on. That's got my power in the white numbers at the top in watts, and then the two sets of black numbers, the one on the right hand side is my pulse in beats per minute, and like I said, I want to keep over 200 watts, quite a lot over 200 watts for the whole race, in order to get me close to that 200 watt FTP. Now, racing on Zwift can be extremely arduous exercise, and it can be pretty intense on your cardiovascular system. So you shouldn't be getting into anything like this unless you've consulted with your family doctor at least, or better still with a cardiologist. And certainly don't look at me and say, well, he's doing it, I'm going to do it. I've consulted with cardiologists many times over the years, and I've done many stress tests, so I feel pretty confident at doing this, especially keeping an eye on my heart rate. And of course, if I feel any sort of ill effects or any kind of fatigue that makes me uncomfortable, I would stop straight away. Now the nice thing about this race is that once it settled down pretty well straight away, I got this group of people around me. So these were the people I were going to be competing with. The race itself, there's 4 levels in Zwift that you can race at, A, B, C and D, and it all depends on your history on Zwift and the power that you can or that you feel you can put out. I am in category D. Normally I race just against people in my own category, but this race is mixed. It's all of the categories together, so I'm not expecting to be anywhere near the front. But it is kind of nice that this group forms around me so I can be competitive with them. We're heading up to Trafalgar Square at the minute, Nelson's Column, and there's a bit of an incline. If you look at the box on the right at the top, where the map is, it says 5%, so that's the incline at the minute. So our pace has slowed down, but if you notice, the watts have gone up because we're all pushing up this hill. So at this point in the race, I was just thinking, I'll get to the top of the hill, and then I can cruise a little bit. And because I was pushing it on, I was feeling just a little fatigued going up here. So as we came off that hill, I took a look at the middle box at the top, the white box, and there are 2 sets of black numbers. The ones on the left are the distance, which at this point is 4.1 kilometers. The ones on the right are the time, which is 7 minutes. And this race is 17.5 kilometers, and my legs are already feeling really, really heavy. So because I was so tired, I was just thinking to myself, just take it 1 minute at a time. Just add minute after minute if you can. And I actually started to notice that the people who had been around me before were all still there. They weren't getting away from me. So, maybe my watts would drop. Maybe I wouldn't do that FTP that I'd hoped for. But I could still perhaps be competitive with my little group. Here we are, we're going back around Trafalgar Square. Nelson's Column's on the left, and we're just heading on to Pall Mall, and ahead of us at the very other end of Pall Mall is Buckingham Palace. So the really nice thing about this group of 8 or so people that I was racing against was that it seemed that everybody took their turn on the front and allowed other people to sit in their draft and to benefit. And that's despite the fact that I'm sure everybody else wanted as much as I did to win this little personal battle. So while we're mid-race here, I just wanted to go back over my own little cardiac history. And I guess it started before 2013, because even before I had my cardiac arrest, I had high cholesterol and I had high blood pressure, although it wasn't anything that had caused particular alarm bells with any medical professionals. And then on May the 5th, 2013, I was in a half marathon, and I felt absolutely fine, no issues at all. The only thing I noticed was that my target times were slower than I was anticipating, without any sort of perceptible reason. And then I got to about 15 of the 21 kilometers, so I got about 15 kilometers in, and I have no recollection whatsoever after that, none at all. And then with about 300 meters to go, I just collapsed straight onto my face, and I smashed my chin open, and I had blood pouring from my face. But amazingly, in the crowd, there was a police officer who was on duty, 2 doctors, and a firefighter. So they ran over and they turned me over and they started giving me CPR. And the police officer called for paramedics who arrived really, really quickly with a defibrillator, and they shocked my heart and managed to get it going again. And then I do remember just waking up briefly in the ambulance before getting to the hospital. When I woke up in hospital several hours later, a cardiologist visited me and he let me know what had happened to me from a medical standpoint. So there had been cholesterol building up on my left ascending artery, and the force of the blood going through my arteries as I was exerting myself in this race forced it to blow off the wall of the artery and cause a blockage. And I think it was about 97% blockage, and then that stopped blood flow getting to my heart, and that caused me to go down. So when I got to the hospital, they had rushed me into the operating room and they put a stent into that artery and opened it up to allow the blood to flow through. And when I woke up in my hospital bed, I actually felt really quite good. I'd just run 13 kilometers a few hours before, but I really felt pretty decent, which is, I'm told, not that surprising and not that unusual. So just getting back to the Zwift race, it's at this point with about 10 kilometers done that I'm actually thinking, you know what, I'm not doing too bad. I'm holding in with this group here. Maybe I have a chance. So in the years since my cardiac arrest, I've met with my cardiologist on a regular basis. I've had ECGs, I've had stress tests, and initially I was limited by my cardiologist as to how hard I could exercise. He wouldn't allow me to push my heart beyond 120 beats a minute. But each year and each stress test, when the results have been so positive, he's increased that and increased that. And the last time I had a stress test and the last time I went to see my cardiologist, he gave me no upper end limit as to how hard I could push my heart, as long as I'm monitoring it and as long as I'm aware of what zone I'm exercising in. Racing instincts that have been dormant for many, many years are now beginning to kick in at this stage of the race. And I'm thinking about the finish, and I'm thinking about conserving as much energy as I possibly can for this final sprint. So as often as I can, I'm getting in people's drafts, I'm using the downhills, I'm letting my watts drop. I've forgotten completely about FTP at this point, as I just want to race against my little group here. So this is a great point in the race for me to give my tip to anybody who's going to be racing Zwift for the very first time. And that is to get familiar with what everything on the screen is relating to. So for example, I didn't realize that there was a statistic on there that is telling me exactly how far I have to go in the race. So I'm just guessing at this point where the finish is. So we're coming back down Cockspur Street here, and I know that we're going to be turning right and going under Admiralty Arch and back onto the Mall for a second time. And I'm aware that there's a finish line about half a kilometre up here. So I move myself to the front and I push ahead. I increase my watts a little bit, but not greatly, just go up to about 300 watts. And I've broken clear of everyone. So I was fairly convinced that I was coming to the finish, but nobody else is with me, and so I'm beginning to doubt myself, and I don't want to expend too many watts in case this isn't the finish. So I ease back and I'm in the mid 200 watts and I'm still ahead, and then all of a sudden, oh, one guy goes by me, and then this happens. Just as I'm easing off, everybody else is pushing on. So what a pitiful piece of race tactics that was. But then I look at the board and I notice that it's telling me for the 29 minutes of the race, I've been doing an average of 214 watts. And then it tells me that my FTP, which is 95% of the best 20 minutes of the race, is also 214 watts. So that's an improvement of 28 watts. Not that he's particularly impressed. So, ridiculously bad sprint finish aside, I'm actually really excited with that race. He's not. He's trying to be all cool about it. But I'm really excited. All modesty aside, I thought 200 for my FTP, an increase of 14, was just way too optimistic. So to get 214, an improvement of 28, and still, despite my moaning earlier on about feeling tired and maybe not finishing, and etc., by the end of it, I think I had a bit of extra in reserve. So this structured training just started as a way of getting fitter and getting healthier. But after today, I don't know, I'm kind of excited about the possibilities of where this can lead. I'm really pleased with my power numbers and the improvement there, and I would like to just keep building on that. I definitely want to do a few more virtual races, and then who knows beyond that. Well, I hope you've enjoyed something a bit different again today, and I'll see you on the next ride.